And I think to myself, as executives are watching this Rays team play, and they have a 2-0 lead right now over the Astros, I'm thinking that if you're JT Realmuto, as an example, or Marcus Stroman, or Trevor Bauer, the big time free agents, I think you're thinking to yourself, God, am I screwed? Because how will an owner be convinced that he needs, I would say he or she needs, but they're all he's, that he needs, I could say he, she, or they, but it's just he's, as far as I know, although I've never done the cough test, that he needs a $30 million catcher. Who's catching for the Rays? Well, he hit a bomb last night. Mike Zunino, a throwaway from the Seattle Mariners, who, by the way, possessed the longest playoff drought in baseball. How are you convinced that you need to spend $25 million on a starting pitcher? Let's take the Yankees as an example. The Yankees are home. They're not playing. They're done. Giancarlo Stanton had a great tweet that said, "We'll be back." It felt like Tom Hanks. Wilson, wasn't that like Tom Hanks in Castaway? Right? I'll be back. I'll be right back, he said when he was saying goodbye to his girlfriend, Helen Hunt. Of course, that was 4 years later. Of course, the Yankees will be back. They've got Garrett Cole signed to a $324 million contract. $324 million is more money than the Tampa Bay Rays have spent on their payroll in 2020, in 2019, in 2018, in 2017, and in 2016. Add up all 5 of those years, and that's a little over $300 million the Rays have spent. Yet their pitching staff is better than the Yankees' pitching staff. Their starters, whether it's Snell, whether it's Glasnow, whether it's Charlie Morton, they go toe-to-toe with Garrett Cole. Do you know that Charlie Morton only makes $15 million and he was their big free agent signing, a 2-year deal? How about Kevin Kiermaier making $10 million? 2 players on their team making 8 figures or more. So as a president of baseball operations or a president of a team, you walk into your owner and you go through the list of free agents. You talk about where your team's going to be. You talk about your payroll. And you say, you know what? We really want to go after Jose Reyes and Heath Bell and Mark Burley and Jared Saltalamacchia and John Buck. Oh, God. Just going over them again and again makes my head spin. And the owner would say to us, why do we need to do that? Why don't you have the ability to build a team like Tampa? Why can't you identify better players through the draft, through free agency, through independent leagues, through trades? Why did the Tampa Bay Rays never lose a trade? One of their best players this year, they got Margot, hit a 3-run homer last night. Got him from the Padres. Actually, the game was in San Diego, funny enough. How about Randy Arozarena? Trade with the Cardinals. Take a look at how they built their roster through the draft, trades. They don't lose a trade. On top of that, when we would find out that the Rays were in on somebody like an international signing, how did they get G-Man Choi, Coca? My guess is he was some sort of international sign, although that seems stereotypical, but wouldn't that be your best guess, Coca? I'd have to imagine. When I would ever get word that they were in on somebody, that would be very telling to me. Whenever I would get word that the Tampa Bay Rays were out on somebody, that would be telling to me. What I know right now is not one player in Major League Baseball who doesn't play for the Rays is not rooting for the Rays. Not one GM who doesn't work for the Rays is rooting for the Rays. Coca's telling me that the Brewers traded G-Man Choi for Brad Miller, but where did the Brewers get G-Man Choi? Just, I don't want to be wrong. Was he, I doubt he was a Rule 4 pick, but he could have been. In any case, The reason why nobody is rooting for the Rays is because it makes you look bad. You have to go into a meeting with your owners, whether it's a single owner, an ownership group, and you have to start explaining yourself. And no one wants to look bad when you are running a team. I'm thinking about Andrew Friedman, who is the president of baseball operations for the Dodgers. They're spending a fortune of money and they have 0 rings. Now they have 8 division championships, 0 rings. They're not even as good as the 90s Braves, who won all those titles in a row in the NL West and then the NL East and won 1 ring in 1995, considered to me a failed dynasty with only 1 ring. The Dodgers are a failed dynasty until they win multiple rings. Imagine if the Rays and the Dodgers make it to the World Series, or the Dodgers lose, frankly, to the Braves, and Andrew Friedman has to watch Stu Sternberg, the owner of the Rays, Matt Silverman, the president, Brian Auld. They get the trophy. It's such a competitive sport. I was going position by position, actually, when I was watching the game, and I'm watching every at-bat. I'm watching the Rays approach, and I'm thinking to myself, in order to do what they do, there's something called, it was, this famous expression, the Cardinals way. They started this many years ago. We've spoken about it, nothing personal. John Mozeliak took over for Walt Jocketty, and they called it the Cardinals way. They have this big, thick book about how they do things in the St. Louis system. And then other teams started copying it. The Marlins now under Jeter have a Marlins way. Although that's the name of the street, 501 Marlins Way. I wonder if they changed that. I wonder if Marlins Park is still on 501 Marlins Way. They changed everything else. But there's now a Marlins Way. There's the Yankees Way. Every team has their book. I want to see the Rays book. And it never really occurred to me when we would hire people. Dan Jennings worked for the Rays when we had him, but that was really before the Rays became who they were. Not saying that Dan was the reason why they weren't who they were. He just had a different owner to deal with and a different organization to deal with. Mike Hill worked for the Rays when we had him as our general manager, president of baseball operations. But there's just something different about their evaluation process, and there's something different about the way their players are prepared. They don't give away an at-bat. They do the things, the fundamental things in baseball right. They play defense. They pitch well. Look at their bullpen. When Diego Castillo isn't available, they have, whether it's they go to Loop, whether they go to Nick Anderson, whether they go to Fairbanks, they just have depth, and it's inexpensive depth. And they don't get married to any of their players. Anyway, it's just been one of those days where I'm sitting there, I'm up late, I'm watching the games, and I'm thinking back. Do you ever do this with your job or with the decision you make in your personal life or professional life, that there are moments you look back and you take stock and you think to yourself, what exactly did I do right? What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And it was a tough game to watch. I'll admit it to you. I'll admit it, that I struggled. I'm struggling watching this Rays group because it just shows all of the different ways that I could have done a better job for the fans of South Florida.